Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam. Ramo Rajamanis Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Bihata Nishachaраchamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha. रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् सत्प्रत्यया किं नु विहाय सन्तं हृद्येशचिन्तारहितो हृदाख्यः कथं स्मरामस्तममेयमेकं तस्य स्मृतिस्तत्र दृढैव निष्ठा. Bhagavan Raman Maharshi Ji is giving us different tools to turn our attention to the self. In Bhagavad Gita 4th chapter, Bhagavan Krishna says, wise person is the one who can pay attention to the self in the midst of all transactions. Karmani akarmayah pashyet, akarmani cha karmayah. Saha buddhiman manusheshu. But how do we pay attention to the self? What are some methods by which we can shift attention to the self in the midst of transactions? How do we get smriti of that sat? Every verse in Saddarshanam is one way to shift attention. If you notice, Bhagavan is taking all those things which are part of transactional world and then showing us a path how if we shift attention to Ahamkara and from Ahamkara to Atma, we can travel this journey inwards. So that is this theme which is there in every verse of Saddarshanam. 13th verse, Bhagavan spoke about the triad. The knower, known and knowing. He said from this triad, without paying attention to the knower, no matter what we know and how we know, that knowledge is not considered as true knowledge. That is not Paramartha Bodha, because the knowledge of knower itself is incomplete or erroneous. But once that is known, once nature of knower is known, the object of knowledge and the knowing, both of them drop. Bodhasya bodhyasya je samshrayam swam vijanatah tad dvitayam vinashyet. Dvitayam refer to jnana and neya. The knowing and what is known, that is dissolved when we understand the nature of Ahamkara. Both of them were dependent upon Ahamkara. Only when Ahamkara is there, knowledge is there, worldly knowledge. Only when Ahamkara is there, worldly object is there. If you understand the nature of Ahamkara to be that self, whatever object is there, that object is dissolved. Then Bhagavan took up the topic of 3 states of experiences. Nidrana vidya, grahanam na vidya. So the shloka we took for meditation today was this one. If I am withdrawing my mind from all objects, emptying my mind just like in deep sleep, Bhagavan says that is not vidya. Deep sleep by itself is not vidya, and just non-perception of world is not vidya. It is not knowledge. Then maybe if I know too many things in the world, is that knowledge? Even if I know it very well, he says grahanam na vidya. Knowing objects in the world is not knowledge. Then Bhagavan, what is knowledge? He says knowing the world as not different from myself. Knowing the world as not different from me, that is knowledge. Yathartha bodhe kinchit na, what was the word we added there? Atmaswarupat anyat grunhati. These words are important, otherwise we won't get the meaning of the verse. Remember, we had discussed Nidra is also non-perception. Correct? We don't see any objects in deep sleep. And what does Bhagavan say in the second line? Grunhati kinchana yathartha bodhe. At the dawn of knowledge, you don't perceive anything. So somebody might misunderstand that to be deep sleep or some kind of state where world disappears. So the commentators, they add this word and say, in spite of seeing the world, he doesn't see the world as different from himself. It is just like the sun ray seeing mirage water. In spite of seeing mirage water, it doesn't see the mirage water as different from itself. The rope seeing the snake, in spite of seeing the snake, doesn't see the snake as different from itself. Like that, when Jnani sees the world, he is not seeing non-perception of the world. He is seeing the world, but is not seeing it as different from himself. If this is the understanding, the transaction of a Jnani, the mindset of a Jnani, will show the result of this understanding. Means whatever I see as myself, whatever I see as me, there I am not attached, nor am I afraid. Whatever I see as me, there I did not have desire for that thing, nor will I have aversion towards that thing, because it's already attained. So that is the expression of knowledge. Grunhati kinchinna yathartha bodhe, nidra padartha grahane tarasyat. Different than nidra, different than deep sleep, and different from waking. That is this truth. Means whatever I am doing in my waking state, according to Bhagavan Raman Maharshi Ji, that is ignorance. If it comes at the cost of knowledge of myself, not paying attention to the self, thinking myself to be this Ahamkara and going through my Jagrata Avastha, all of that things are Nidrana Vidya. That is not Vidya. Then what is Vidya? He says, Chideva Vidya Vilasanti Ashunya. Chideva Vidya means knowledge of the self. That Brahmakara Vritti, knowledge of the self, that alone is Vidya, and it is not some inert state. Vilasanti means that truth is always available to me. It is not some conception in the mind. It is not some concept that this mind is thinking. It is very much available to the seeker. Not only available, he can revel in it also. Vilasanti means that. What was the example we had seen? The gyroscope. Bhagavan Raman Maharshi Ji, he gives example of the gyroscope, where he says, although it is moving so fast, it looks still. So he says, when you look at a jnani, they might look very calm and still, but inside their mind is very vibrant, reveling in this joy. So even in meditation, we have to remember this fact. If mind becomes quiet, it is well and good. Sometimes when we go to sleep also, we feel it's very good meditation. Because for that duration, mind has become quiet. But true meditation is when we can be very much alert about the nature of self at the exclusion of worldly thoughts. That is this verse, Chideva Vidya Vilasanti Ashunya. Next verse again, Bhagavan said, one truth alone is appearing as many. Just like one gold appears as different ornaments, this Nama and Akruti, name and form, is nothing but expression of that one Sat. More we can keep reflecting on this. First of all, our fascination for name and form should go down. And through that name and form, we should be able to shift attention to Sat. Both things should happen. Remember in Chandogya 6th chapter, there is one portion where Panchikaranam is mentioned. Panchikaranam is mentioned, Trivrit Karanam is mentioned, but we should understand it as Panchikaranam. Means from that consciousness, 3 elements came about. Teja, Up, Anna. And from those 3 elements only, this entire gross creation is made up of. You take any material, any object, it is nothing but 3 elements. Not only this world, other worlds are also made up of same elements. Where was this said? Vedanta Sara. Chaturdasha Bhuvanani. When the topic of Sthula Srishti came, after Panchikaranam, it was said, all 14 worlds are made up of same 5 elements. In Chandogya, there was one Phalashruti written. What happens when we think about creation in this way? He said that person is never discontent about anything in life. This is the Phalashruti. He said, Chandogya Upanishad mantra said, wise people, they have analyzed this world in such a way, any object anybody promises, if it is not there now, it will come sometime. He says, is it 5 elements or different from 5 elements? If it is 5 elements, then whatever thing I'm seeing here, same thing I will see there. What does Bhagavan Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Yada te moha kalilam buddhir vyatitarishyasi tadagantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. Shrotavyasya means whatever I have heard right now, whatever I'm hearing right now, and whatever is yet to be heard. From both these things, you will get vairagya. So this person is the one who has boiled down this creation first to elements. From that, he has come to Sat. So whenever he sees the world, his first understanding is this Nama Rupa is not absolute. Satyashchidatma vividha krutishchita. Siddhyet prutak satyachitona bhinna. These Nama Rupas, they are not independent of consciousness. There is consciousness, and these Nama Rupas are an appearance in that Chaitanya. In that way, he understands. Now, Bhagavan Raman Maharshi Ji is in a very different mood right now. He will take topics which we discuss day in and day out. And from that topic, he will say, this is how you can shift attention to Sat. In general, whenever we meet, whenever we discuss something, what do we generally discuss? Either of something which is far or something which is near. Some person who is far or some person who is next to me. He says, let us take those things and let us discuss how we can shift attention to Sat. So he is going to take 2 pronouns. One is called as Tat, another is called as Yushmad. Sarvanama Shabda. Tat means that which is far off. Yushmad means right which is next to me. Means a person who is far away, you will refer to that as Tat or Saha. And person who is next, that will be Means you can refer to that person as you. So Yushmad he uses. Yushmad. In Sanskrit grammar, third person is called as Prathama Purusha. It's slightly flipped. Third person is called as Prathama Purusha. Second person is called as Madhyama Purusha. First person is Uttama Purusha. Because knowledge of Purushottama happens in Uttama Purusha. Knowledge of that Chaitanya will happen in I. So he says, focus there. Very beautiful verse, you see, 16th one. Tadyushmadorasmadi sampratishtha. Tadyushmadorasmadi sampratishtha. Tasmin vinashte smadimulabodhat. Tasmin vinashte smadimulabodhat. Tadyushmadasman mativarjitaika. Tadyushmadasman mativarjitaika. Sthitirjvalanti sahajatmanasyat. Sthitirjvalanti sahajatmanasyat. We can want to chant together, okay. Tadyushmadosmo, tadyushmadorasmadi sampratishtha, tasmin vinashte smadimulabodhat, tadyushmadasman mativarjitaika, sthitirjvalanti sahajatmanasyat. Tat yushmadoho asmadi sampratishtha. Tat means that, Yushmad means you. So you is referred to somebody who is nearby. So he says the root of that and you is I. The Sampratishta means the Ashraya of Tat and Yushmad is Asmad. Means what Bhagavan is telling here is, when you find the true I, all others disappear. When I find true I, all others disappear. Tad yushmadoho asmadi sampratishtha. Tasmin asmadi moola bodhat vinashte. This tat and yushmad, when you inquire into aham, when you inquire into ahamkara, which is when you inquire into the moola of ahamkara, that is why the word has come, moola bodhat. Means what is the substratum of ahamkara? That when I inquire, then all these three things, they disappear. Tasmin asmadi moola bodhat vinashte. What are the three things? That, you, and I. I means ahamkara. Tad yushmad asmat mati varjita eka. What is that state of realization where there is no concept of tat, no concept of yushmat, no concept of asmad also? But which asmad? Ahamkara asmad. Raman Maharshi Ji expects that we are familiar with Sarvanama Shabda and we can put the right Sarvanama for the right thing. Because Sarvanama always will go with a Nama. Sham is coming to the station, go and bring him. Now, if you don't connect him with Shama, somebody else will come home. So, Nama should go with Sarvanama. So, here he said, Tad Yushmad Asmad. So, Asmad, if you apply with Atma, Then what is understanding? That state which is devoid of Atma. He says, no, not in that way. Tad and Yushmad are two things he mentioned first. Then he said, Asmad is Ahankara. If you inquire into the source of Ahankara, then all these three things dissolve. Means in deep sleep, there is no concept of Ahankara. So there is no concept of you, no concept of that. No concept of he, no concept of you. This is both of them rise only when Ahankara rises. And when we inquire into substratum of Ahankara, that is true knowledge. Eka means that which is devoid of these three things. Tat, Yushmat and Asmat. Sahajatmanah stitihi jwalanti. Or this you can put it as Tad Yushmad Asmat Mati Varjita Eka. That is simple, right? Third line is simple. That state jwalanti. Eka jwalanti means that state is very well experienced, very well understood. It is not some mystic state. This is whenever we understand the falsity of Tat, Yushmad and Asmad, that is this state. Atmanah stitihi sahaja syat. You can make anvaya like that. Atmanah stitihi sahaja syat means that state is effortless. To think about Tat, to think about he and you, he says you need effort. To be the self, there is no effort. Atmanah sahaja sthiti syat. It is effortless knowledge. Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi Ji, he would explain this verse whenever this topic would come of you and I, with one story of Ribhu and Nidhaga. A very popular story, but it is, very powerful story. So there was a guru and disciple. Guru's name was Ribhu, disciple's name was Nidhaga. And after the student learnt, Nidhaga, after he learnt, he went back to his city and he started serving the king. He was the Rajguru of the king. This Ribhu Guru, once in a while, he would be curious to know, what is my student doing? And he had his own way to find out what his students are doing. So one day he disguises himself as a very ordinary person and goes to meet Nidhaga. So Nidhaga was standing there and king's procession was going by. King, with all his paraphernalia, he was going by that street. Ribhu goes, the guru who is disguised as that ordinary person, and asks Nidhaga, what are you doing here? Nidhaga says, can't you see? King is going. I'm watching his procession. He says, who is the king? This person asks Nidhaga. So what kind of question are you asking? Can't you see so many horses are there and one big elephant is there? The one who is sitting above the elephant is the king. He says, what is above and what is below? He says, don't you know what is above and what is below? Come here, I'll show you. He says, bend down. What do they say? Ghoda bano. Become a horse. And then he sits on top. And he says, you are below, I am above. And then Ribhu says, what is this you and I? That much was sufficient for him to go in Samadhi. Because whatever the teacher had taught, everything came alive. That you cannot establish you without I. But imagine his state, he's sitting on his guru. But another way to look at it is, look at the compassion of guru. It doesn't mind becoming the horse also if it can remind the student of his goal. The main point is, in Jagrat Avastha, whatever we call as second person and third person, that is rooted in Ahamkara. Means throughout our day, if we miss this point, our whole Vyavahara will go in Tat, Yushmad and Asmat. What I did, what you did, what he did. But this verse is telling, in the midst of that transaction, if we can pay attention to the self, all these three things, first they will look as different from us. And more we can abide in the self, these three things will disappear. It's a big statement. Huh? Tad Yushmad Asmat Mati Varjita Eka. Mati Varjita means in our understanding we have understood that this is not who we are. The sadhana aspect of this verse comes in many Upanishads, even in Sadhana Panchakam. Nanudhyayit bahun shabdan vacho viglapanam hitat. It is said after you have known the truth or we have known the path to the truth, don't get caught up in any of these things. Tat, Yushmad and Asmat. Na anudhyayit bahun shabdan. Don't elaborate too much about Tat, Yushmad and Asmat. What I did, what you did, what he did. Because it is vacho viglapanam. Viglapanam means it's a trouble to your speech. More we can pay attention to the self. Talks about these three things, they become immaterial. What did Bhagavan Shankaracharya Ji say? Natu vrutha vakyam samucharyatam. Shitoshnadi vishahyatam. Pairs of opposites we should bear. But those discussions which are taking us away from the truth. Now remember, this is not talking about duties. It is not talking about kartavya. Otherwise, this verse will look very impractical. If you cannot, or if you never use pronouns at all, never say you, never say he, never say I, Vyavahara will not run. But our Vyavahara doesn't stop there. There is so many layers of ragadveshas which come with all three. He, you, and I. For a spiritual seeker, he has put a lot of effort to remove ragadvesha with these three. On what strength? Because he says, my goal is that which is different from these three. Tat, Yushmat, and Asmat. Another practical side of this verse is, person who understands I am the substratum of Tat, Yushmat, and Asmat is never uncomfortable anywhere. Very comfortable everywhere, because Tat and Yushmad are not bothering him much. Bhagavan Raman Maharshi Ji, when he was sitting in Tiruvannamalai, one devotee comes and many of them would ask questions. And this devotee was feeling hesitant to ask in front of everybody else. So he waited. And finally he said to Bhagavan, Bhagavan, I have a question. Bhagavan's response to him was, let everyone go. Let everyone go. And slowly he said for some more time, people left. Then he said, Bhagavan, now everybody has left, I alone am here. And Bhagavan's answer was, now let this I also go. Means you sent Tat away, Yushmad away. Now you have to send Asmad away. What remains after that, that is Sat. See, Bhagavan Raman Maharshi Ji's technique, we have to get used to. He is taking those topics which we generally are familiar with. but he's not speaking about that thing which we are familiar with, right? If it is you and he, when it comes to sadhana, when it comes to some other grantha, the advice will be equanimous with everybody. What did Bhagavan Krishna say in 6th chapter? Suhrun, Mitra, Ari, Udasina, Madhyastha, Dvesha, Bandhushu, Sadhushu, Apija, Papeshu, Samabuddhihi Vishishyate. Be equanimous to all kinds of people. But Raman Maharshi Ji, he refers to all kinds of people, but he doesn't say be equanimous. He says enquire what is the root of this notion that there are others. This notion that this is a person, that is a person. This is the notion is rooted in Ahamkara. A very powerful technique for one who is seeking self-abidance. Next, he takes another topic, which again we are familiar with. But he will explain it in his own unique way. See the 17th verse. Bhutam bhavishyaccha bhavat swakale. Bhutam bhavishyaccha bhavat swakale. Tadvartamanasya vihaya tattvam. Tadvartamanasya vihaya tattvam. Hasyana kim syat gata bhavi charcha. Hasyana kim syat gata bhavi charcha. Vinaika sankhyaam gananeva loke. Vinaika sankhyaam gananeva loke. Bhutam bhavishyaccha bhavat swakale. Tadvartamanasya vihaya tattvam. Hasyana kim syat gata bhavi charcha. Vinaika sankhyaam gananeva loke. He says, let us take the concept of time. Generally, what is our discussion about time? Past, present, future. Three broad categories we can make in time. We have thoughts about the past. Mostly we have thoughts about future. Present just keeps going on. And we use so many other terms, planning for future, learning from past. All these terms are there. There are more fancier terms also, right? Positive outlook. Look at your future positively. Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi Ji takes a slightly different approach. He says, look at whether these are really three things or one appearing as three. Past, present, and future. Are they three things? Or is present alone appearing as past? Present alone will appear as future. See what he says first line. Bhutam bhavishyaccha swakale bhavat. Bhutam means past. Bhavishya means future. Swakale means while experiencing, it is present only. Means this particular class, right? Saddarshanam class. When we look at it 1 week later, this will look at past. So 2 weeks ago, what class we had, what we are calling as past, it was experienced as present. And the class which is going to come next week, next weekend, what I call as future, when I experience it, it will be present. Means he says, instead of swinging our mind in past and future, he says, bring it in the present first. Bhutam bhavishyaccha swakale bhavat. Tad vartamanasya tattvam vihaya. Gata bhavi charcha asya kim syat. Without paying attention to the present, without paying attention to the essence of the present, if we only discuss about past and future, isn't it laughable? Raman Maharshi Ji feels that way. That if we don't bring our attention to the present, not only bring attention to the present, shift attention to the tattva of the present. How will you shift attention to tattva of present? First ask who is the experiencer of the present, and then inquire into what is the substratum in which this experiencer is appearing. That is the way to reach Sat. But if our mind is always in future, always in past, it says we'll never be able to shift attention to this tattva. And without doing this, if you are only discussing about past and future, it says that is laughable. Asya na kim syad gata bhavi charcha. How is it laughable? He says it is just like iha loke eka sankyam vina ganana iva. Means in this world, it is just like counting without the unit 1. Means how do you understand this? If somebody says or asks, how many numbers are there? What will we say? Infinite numbers. But really speaking, it is 1 alone. When you add multiple times, it becomes 2, 3, 4, and so many. So if somebody is ignoring the number 1 or not paying attention to 1 and counting from 2, 3, 4 onwards, that is like this person who is not paying attention to present and his mind is in past or future. Gata bhavi charcha, just like 1 alone has become all the numbers, present alone has become the past, present alone will become future. This in a sadhana standpoint, Bhagavan Krishna says, do what you have to do right now. Being anxious of future is not going to help. Being regretful of past is not going to help. Right now, whatever is our prapta kartavya, just keep doing whatever we have to do. But one layer deeper than that is, ask who is doing this kartavya. Who is the one who is doing this kartavya? From that ahamkara, bring attention to the tattva. From that tattva, the ahamkara appears mithya, and the time span of past, present, and future appears to be mithya. Really speaking, this is the main message in Saddarshanam. Staying as ahamkara, if we look at past, present, and future, we will get the same answers what we have been getting without studying Saddarshanam also. True or not? If you just search how to deal with past, how to deal with future, power of now, you will get so many things. But what Raman Maharshi Ji wants to say is, position yourself as the self. As the self, look at past, present, and future. You will find something very unique and different. I looked up this dialogue with Bhagavan Raman Maharshi Ji, wherever he has answered the question, what is time? Very beautiful answers are there. It will give us some more insight. One devotee comes and asks, what is time? Bhagavan says it is interval between 2 states. Gurudev also has given this definition. He says, time is the interval between 2 thoughts. And the first thought is thoughted, second thought is thoughting. That interval is called as time. But he says, next point is beautiful. He says, to call something as a state, that itself is a reality given by your mind. When we say time is the interval between 2 states, whatever you call a state, the existence to that state is given by the mind. in deep sleep, where is state? If there is no state, where is interval between state? If there is no interval, where is time? So he says, I don't believe in time. Time is a concept of the mind. In our Puranas, this is depicted in a poetic way. Who is Kala Bhagwan in our Puranas? Adishesha. Lakshman is considered to be avatar of Adishesha, who is Kala. And Bhagwan Vishnu is lying on the bed of Adishesha. That Chaitanya Tattva appears to be in time. But who is the master and who is the one who is serving? Adishesha Bhagwan says, Bhagwan Vishnu is my master. So Chaitanya is the substratum. Kala is appearing in Chaitanya. In that way. Second, he says, somebody asked him again, what is time? Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi Ji. Second answer he gave was, he says, it's only an idea. We gave reality to time and we have divided it into different units. We have taken year as a unit, minutes, seconds. This, what do we call it? Daylight saving time. Means we have so much control, we can change it also. Spring forward, fall back. He says that is time. It is more for vyavaharik suvidha. Means ease of transaction. Everybody should have a constant framework. Really speaking, time is relative. Brahmaji's time is different than our time. One Mahatma Ji would say, be careful when you pray to Brahmaji. If he says, wait a minute, then your wait a minute is several years by the time he comes and gives a boon. Even in our own experience, we feel whenever we like something, time just flies. And whenever we don't like something, it goes so slow. That is the relativity in time. Do you know our waking time and dream time, they are also different. There are some studies which I've concluded, but final conclusion is they say we don't know. I looked a lot. But one of the things they say is, if you dream for 5 minutes, you might be dreaming for several years. You might be dreaming about several years. So what you dream over there might be waking state 5 minutes only. Waking state time, 5 minutes dream could be equivalent to a longer duration of dream time. So he says it's all a construct of mind. Through this kala, shift attention to present. From present, bring attention to Atma. That is his main message. Last one, one devotee comes and says, can we remain without thoughts rising for 24 hours in a day? Can we remain without thoughts rising for 24 hours in a day? Bhagavan Raman Maharshi Ji says, what is hours? The concept of hour we have given means that hour is also a thought. To think that I will not have thoughts within this 24 hours means you're already having thought of that hour. But simple sadhana here is paying attention to present. Whenever mind goes in the past or future, this is that Atma Tattva, that Chaitanya is present in the present. Example of counting also we saw. Another example I read, somebody comes to Bhagwan and says, asks a question about, is today Ekadashi or Dwadashi? Means should I do this today on Ekadashi day or should I do it on Dwadashi day or should it be done on Chaturdashi day? Bhagwan's answer is amazing. He says, I don't even know whether it is day or night. How will I know whether it is Ekadashi or Dwadashi? Means from the standpoint of self, even day and night appears irrelevant. This is any other time scale. It has its own importance, but not from the standpoint of the self. In that way, he explains. Next verse, we will see what is the importance of these things also. Sometimes you should not dismiss Desha Kala just like that. Okay, let us see the next verse, 18th verse. If you want to give title to the previous verse, you can just write it as only the present exists. 17th verse, what is the main theme? Only the present exists. Let mind not go into past and future. 18th verse. Kvabhati dikkala katha vinasman. Kvabhati dikkala katha vinasman. Dikkala lile havapurvayam chet. Dikkala lile havapurvayam chet. न क्वापि भामो न कदापि भामः न क्वापि भामो न कदापि भामः वयं तु सर्वत्र सदा च भामः वयं तु सर्वत्र सदा च भामः क्व भाति दिक्कालकथा विनास्मान् दिक्काललीलेह वपुर्वयं चेत् न क्वापि भामो न कदापि भामः वयं तु सर्वत्र सदा च भामः. Sometimes if you are finding Saddarshanam difficult, we can just replace Sat with Bhagavan. It becomes easier to understand. Means even if we do this or understand these verses with faith, still it will do us good. If somebody doesn't know how I express everywhere, how I am present in all times, even if somebody does this bhavana with faith, it will become upasana. If we know how we are all pervading and how we are eternal, that is knowledge. So here Bhagavan takes Desha and Kala, space and time. Previous verse was only time. Now he takes space and time. Now, whenever it comes to transactions, space and time is very important. Transactions. Whenever we start our puja, what do we do first? Tell Bhagavan, where am I sitting right now? What is my space? What is my time? Shubhe Shobhane Muhurte. Muhurta I will tell. What is the nakshatra? Sandipani ashrame sthitav. Means I am sitting in this ashrama. Location I will tell. Tithi I will tell. Date I will tell. Because when it comes to karma, the result is dependent upon Desha and Kala. Whatever results we get doing that action in a particular place might be very different than doing it anywhere else. Whatever result we get doing that action at a particular time might be very different than doing that action at a different time. For example, they say, Dhanteras Day, you should buy something. And Akshaya Tritiya also, they say you should give things. When a newborn child is there, there is some window of time. It is said whatever dhanam is given during that time, the punyam is multiplied many folds. That's why when Bhagavan Krishna is born, Vasudevji gives manasika dhanam of several cows. Parikshitji Maharaj, when he is born, Yudhishthir Maharaj gives dhanam. Because Desha is important, Kala is important. Right at that time, if you give, the Punya is more. So different things we notice, it will have a specific result related to Desha, related to Kala. But when it comes to knowledge of self, the main goal here is to transcend Desha, transcend Kala. So if somebody has the question, which direction should I meditate? Should I see north? While sleeping, people follow this, right? They say your head should be where? Towards north. Sometimes different traditions have different ways. I would always think, if you are going in a train and you are sleeping, train changes direction, your head changes direction, still we sleep well. But point is, whoever has Shraddha, it might have worked. They say some magnetic poles, they align and something happens. But you see, Bhagavan Krishna, what guidance he gives about Desha in meditation? He says, just find a clean place. Shuchau Deshe Pratisthapya. Find a clean spot, that is all. He doesn't say whether you should meditate in Tirtha Kshetra or in your home or which room in your home. Because when we meditate, eyes are closed. And we are meditating upon that Chaitanya, which is substratum of Desha and Kala. So Desha Kala by itself has no impact on Vedantic meditation. Does Bhagavan give any guidance on Kala? He says, no, meditate whenever you can. Just he says, Ekaki rahasistitaha. Find a time when you are by yourself. If you miss the morning hours, very difficult to find time when you are by yourself. So it's a hint saying that ideally you should meditate in the morning. But other than that, Desha Kala is not spoken at all. Kala has impact on mind, no doubt. Different people, they say, right? I'm a morning person, late night person. Means our gunas of the mind, they change according to time of the day. Whenever Prakriti is Shanta, mind will be Shanta. Prakriti means nature is quiet, mind is quiet. Daytime, nature gets agitated or nature is alive and acting, mind also gets rajasic. And nighttime, it again goes back into inertia mode, so mind becomes tamasic. But all these three, they are important as far as Vyavahara is concerned. Remember, Saddarshanam is not text on Vyavahara. Saddarshanam is text on Tattva. So he says, Asman vina dik kala katha kwa bhati. Without Ahamkara, where is the story of Dik and Kala? According to Raman Maharshi Ji, whatever we do in time and space is like a story. Dik Kala Katha, fairy tale. Dik, space is needed for Nama Rupa. And time is needed for actions. Kriya needs Kala, Nama Rupa needs Desha. Whenever you say you are acting, what is the main insignia of action? There should be some moment in time. So that part goes with Kriya, and Nama Rupa part predominantly goes with Kala, Desha. Dikkala Leela, until when does this Dikkala Leela, or when does Dikkala Leela start? Iha vayam vapuhu chet Dikkala Leela syat. Second line you see, Dikkala Leeleha vapur vayam chet. This is when we identify with physical body, then this space and time becomes real. So much so that in dream, we have different space, different time. In deep sleep, there is no space, there is no time. Only when body identification comes, there is this space and there is time. Next two lines are lines for meditation. If you have understood this truth, what is the song that a realized person sings inside? Nakwapi bhamo na kadapi bhama. He says there is no conditioning of space in me, there is no conditioning of time in me. I am not a localized entity. Vayam tu sarvatra sadacha bhama. On the other hand, we shine everywhere, we shine at all times. He is giving the privilege to all of us. He says we. Means if you have understood this truth, we can join Bhagavan Raman Maharshi Ji. Vayam tu sarvatra sadacha bhama. There is no place in this universe where I don't express. And there is no time when I will cease to express, whether body is there or body is not there. That is the beauty of this verse. Vayam tu sarvatra sadacha bhamaha. What was the thought process in this verse again? When body identification is there, means when Ahamkara identifies with body, Desha and Kala become Satyam. And in this Desha Kala, there is so many things going on. Whole Vyavahara is going on in Desha Kala. But if we shift attention to what is that cause because of which Desha Kala is appearing? Or when does Desha Kala start appearing? It is only when we have body identification, only at that time Desha Kala appears. Why do I have body identification? Because Ahamkara is identified with body. Why is Ahamkara identified with body? Because it has karmaja tadatmya. Drisha viveka. Ahamkara has karma related tadatmya with this body. Means even if you want, until this karma is exhausted, this connection with Ahamkara and body will continue. We cannot prematurely end this sambandha. But Ahamkara and Atma, is there connection? He says there is Bhranti Janya connection. Only because of delusion, we start feeling we are Ahamkara. So very subtly, he is going and inquiring into this mix-up which is happening. But he says, Vayam tu sarvatra sadacha bhama. So these last two lines, they are actually nishtha in Saddarshanam. It is not some mystic state. What is the experience of a jnani? He says, my body might be in one place, but I am not confined to this one place. His understanding of I is, I am Chaitanya. Body might be aging in time, but he says, I am not aging in time. Because his understanding of I is, I am that Chaitanya. So if you want to give a title to this verse, you can say, we are timeless, we are spaceless. That's why I said, even if you do upasana of this, right, it will bring a lot of good. If you have understood how I am not conditioned by time and space through whatever we have discussed, well and good. But other than thinking, I am this one person going through samsara, this just gives a different insight. Next also is a very beautiful verse. We will not see it today, but the questions that we get sometimes, do Mahatmas also feel pain? Or sometimes when they're going through pain, people say, you are a Mahatma, you don't feel pain. Do they feel body identification? Do they also feel, I am this body, or do they feel something else? How is their understanding when it comes to body? And how do they go through experiences in life. Is it different for ignorant person, different for learned person, or is it the same? That is discussed in the next verse. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.